during your teenage years, like if you ever experience any time where you didn't want to be Hmong. And so when Olivia said, talk with about poverty, like that was big for me because I associated being Hmong with being poor. And I remember during the summers, and probably this was probably in high school when I recognized that we were actually poor, because everybody else is poor too. You didn't realize that you were poor, right? Because nobody had more than you, and so it wasn't until high school that I started recognizing like we are poor. And during the summers, all my friends would go, all my Mika friends would have summer camps. They would go and learn these new things and do these new things. And for us, like my summer wasn't like that. My summer was like, not Jay, trying to find something to do, right? Like
TV all day.
Yeah. And so like that's when I, felt like I actually didn't want to be Hmong, because being Hmong to me was being poor and not having the same opportunities, like not, going to Disneyland or Disney World, not doing any of those things. And so I'm curious to see if you guys ever had similar experience as a teenager, or maybe it's just me.
Well, for me, I've always been an avid reader. And so I remember when I was around 11 or 12, I would read stories about strong, independent women who were had their own career. They were opinionated. And I thought to myself, like, gosh, this is like who I would want to be as a woman. But it was definitely a cultural clash with my family just because my parents are really traditional in terms of my mom wanting to raise me to be that perfect wife, right? And so I just remember waking up every weekend right at 7 a.m. My mom would wake me up and she'd be like, okay, well, you need to wake up and learn how to cook because, you're going to be that, you're going to be a wife one day. You need to know how to serve your husband. And I just remember having so much resentment, like, gosh, like, that's not what I want to be. I don't want to be married and then just serving my husband, which I do now. So, but but when I was a teen, I really, I was very rebellious, and I just remember like I don't want to be Hmong. I don't want to be a Hmong wife, and so I definitely didn't want to be Hmong during that time of my life.
Cool. I think a lot of women can probably relate.
I actually remember, and this was like it happened way before like my teenage years. Like it was like when I was 4 or 5, I think. I actually remember like my mom was crying because like a bunch of like drunk Hmong guys like had like said something to her. I think one of them even hit her. And I just remember there was like we were sitting. My mom was sitting on our swing set in our backyard, and I was just standing there holding her hand, and I didn't know what to do. And in that moment, like I made the choice of being like, Hmong guys in particular are really like crappy people, and they disrespect women, and I don't ever want to be like that. I refuse to be that. And so for a long time, like even before I realized it, I had put into my brain, the subconscious brain, that I was never going to be a Hmong guy growing up. And you can see how that impacts someone growing up in general with their own identity. But I remember like that moment very vividly. And like it was then when I was like, I always hung out with Hmong people anyways, just because that's just what happened, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was introduced to. But like it was during, I just remember like I was like, I don't want to be like a Hmong person. I don't want to like grow up drunk and hitting women and whatever. And that was like a big deciding factor for me and my identity.
Do you remember if they were those like uncles, like actual family, or were they just like associations with family?
They were relatives. I don't remember exactly why we were over there or like exactly like the whole situation. I just remember like my mom took me because she wanted somebody to walk there with her, and then next thing you know, like something happened, and then she's crying, and I'm just sitting there like, or standing there like, I don't know what to do right now, but this sucks. Like, why would people do this to my mom?
Yeah, I think my experience is very similar to yours, Thujar. I think though I don't ever remember or recall having a feeling of like I don't want to be Hmong, but I hate the situation I was dealt with. And I
Mhm.
hate the way people treated my mom. And I hated the feeling of like being a girl and not being able to stand up for her. And I hated the way that people just treat her in general. And like whenever I say something, I'm like labeled all of these names because of that. And I hate, I mean, that still happens today. And I still hate it and I fight it every day, right? I'm still trying to like understand the reason why people do the things that they do. Why do people treat people the way that they do? And it tends to be like the older generation. The younger one, not so much anymore. I think we're trying to, progress forward. But for me, it's not really like not feeling like a Hmong. I've always been proud of that, but there are certain situations that's happened where I'm like, I don't agree with it, and I have really strong opinions about it. But I've never
Okay.
taken that and say I don't want to be Hmong because of it. So it's a little different for me, I guess. It's just looking at it differently and saying I don't like this situation and I don't like how people are treated, but I've never questioned me being Hmong.